For a lot of us Zelda fans, the time spent playing Tears of the Kingdom has come and gone, leaving us to turn to other games we may have neglected or some titles we've been thinking about picking up. But maybe you're still a little unsure of what you want to play next, and you're yearning for something a little similar to Zelda. That's why I've pulled together a few of my friends in the community to showcase some games we think Zelda fans will really enjoy. So without further delay, let's look at some games we think every Zelda fan should play.
Once we were many, now we are few. Hunters, killers of the world's filth. Witchers, the ultimate killing machines. Among us, a legend. The one they call Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf.
Yeah, I know. Resident Witcher guy wants to talk about The Witcher 3 some more. Sue me. Listen, I know I'm a giant shill for The Witcher, and I've praised this game to the point of nausea, but I think this is a great title for Zelda fans, especially those of you who felt the story for Tears of the Kingdom was lacking. The Witcher 3 is a staple open-world experience that has to be played if you're a fan of the genre. This game is nearly 9 years old and still does a better job at storytelling and open-world exploration than a lot of newer releases. If you are one of the many people with the mindset that Tears of the Kingdom story is its weakest link, pun fully intended, and wanted a more linear experience that also gives freedom to explore an adventure, then The Witcher 3 is one of the best games you could pick up. The world of The Witcher 3 is designed by player choice, and your actions have direct consequences that affect the world. What might seem like an insignificant side quest can have repercussions that change the entire game. This game is super narrative focused, but allows player freedom and choice to determine how the world evolves, making every decision mean something. Maybe you're thinking, okay, that sounds good and all, but shouldn't I start at the beginning of the franchise? No. What's great about The Witcher 3 is that it isn't reliant on you knowing the previous histories and lore for the story to be impactful and interesting. The character relationships and conflicts specifically in this game make this a perfect entry point into the franchise because they're good enough to carry the story without making the player feel like they need to do a giant deep dive and know every finite detail about the world. Details from previous games are alluded to enough to explain the context, but not drug out to the point that it feels like needless exposition. For Zelda fans looking for an in-depth story and maybe a few other things, now is a great time to try The Witcher 3. With the free next-gen update that came out a little over a year ago, the game has become relevant again and is in a better state than it's ever been. This game is constantly on sale both as a standard and Game of the Year edition, usually for like under $30. The DLCs included are still the best DLCs I've ever played in any game. The Blood and Wine expansion specifically provides just so much content that it could be considered its own game. If you want a compelling story and exciting open world that evolves alongside you, you gotta play The Witcher 3.
Do you like Zelda dungeon crawling? Sure you do. You're likely calling out for traditional dungeons to be implemented into the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom styled games. You might even be one of those people who would feel better if the games didn't have a true open world at all. Plus, maybe you're a Pokemon fan, right? Like half of the world is. I have the game for you. You should check out Persona 5. The rest of the games are just as good, but as a Zelda fan, it would feel wrong if I didn't recommend this game in particular. Its music is the best I've ever heard in a game. If you're into a jazz type of vibe, then you'll definitely mesh with it. It's a life sim, so you can go out, talk to friends, go to work, rizz with your doctor if you're feeling like it. But then alongside that stuff, you have palaces. These are the twisted views that villains have on locations around them. As an example, a teacher may view his school as a castle and he can do whatever he wants in there. Boom, here you are in a castle that showcases his views on the world around him as you embark on a quest to make him a better person by taking his distorted desires. These palaces have classic Zelda-like design. Would they fit perfectly in a Zelda title? No, probably not. But within the context of Persona 5, these dungeons are near perfection. They're perfectly themed, are packed with enemies, have more puzzles than you'd ever expect out of a game with turn-based combat, and it has some of the most compelling characters I've seen outside of the Zelda series. The meme is that Persona 5 fans don't actually play the game, but you can change that.
Wake up, get up, get up there. Raise your voice, I guess, like yours. Feed your anger like fire. Why does nobody want you? Just imagine you're out there. Swatting lights in a makeup. Can't move fast without breaking. If you hold on, life will change.
Why do you play The Legend of Zelda? Sounds like a simple question, but it comes with a broad set of answers, some of which make me think you're not all taking this too seriously. For me, it's to get invested in a deep fantasy world, meet interesting characters every step of the way, partake in a grand adventure, unravel a meaningful story with a real message to take away, learn deep combat systems just to be free. Wait. Wrong game. Xenoblade Chronicles. 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 3 Part 2, Extreme. Pick one and play it. It is my wisdom for you all today. What you will find is an adventure that gives you all the reasons you love to play the Legend of Zelda series and more. I'm a stickler for a good, meaningful story in a video game, and I'm gonna be honest with you, that has been one of the Zelda series' weakest points as of late. The Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, on the other hand, you're just gonna have to play it and you'll understand. I mean, look, they both got a funny circle in the lore. What else do you want? So yeah, I know Tyler and our other friends have shot a large barrage of wonderful game suggestions at you here today, and my suggestion might be a bit of a big time sink, but you know, just trust me. You won't regret it. And if you're not sold yet but still intrigued, I do have a whole video about the Zelda Xenoblade comparison over on my channel, so you can check that out after this video or later after you check out all of Tyler's videos. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
There can be long waits between Zelda releases, so it's always nice when other smaller studios are able to fill those gaps and scratch that Zelda itch for us fans. The Blossom Tales games are some of my favorite Zelda-inspired games, basically taking the tried and true formula of classic 2D Zelda and creating their own adventures with that formula. Great games, highly recommend. But there is a certain magic to a developer adapting rather than the mechanics and formula of Zelda, adapting instead the spirit of Zelda into their very own original works. That is what we got with Tunic. Tunic's story is not something I'll be talking about here, because the greatest joy of Tunic is its sense of discovery. You know, in Zelda, when you find a room and you see behind a mesh wall or something a treasure chest, and you get this tantalizing feeling, this natural curiosity. What's in the chest? How do I get there? And then this satisfying aha feeling as you figure it out, open the chest, and find out what it is. Only imagine, what if you opened the chest and you got the dungeon item and the game was like, what is this? And then you asked Navi what it was, but she said to you, and you're like, bro, what? That is Tunic. Okay, maybe I'm losing you. The point here is that in Tunic, everything is a mystery. The objectives, the mechanics, the story, yes, the game truly is layers upon layers of mystery. There is an in-game manual, but it is so cryptic. Much of it requires translation, but just enough of it is understandable to let you start piecing things together yourself and slowly unravel what exactly is going on here. I mentioned before that Tunic isn't really adapting the formula or mechanics of Zelda, and that is mostly true. It does have a hookshot-like item, but for the most part, its gameplay gets more into Souls-like territory. But the core Zelda, the spirit of Zelda, especially Zelda 1, is baked right into the DNA of Tunic. What I'm getting at is this. There are not many games in which I would recommend this, but Tunic is absolutely a game where I suggest playing with a notebook handy. In most games, I would say that having something supplementary like this shouldn't be necessary, but there's something special and difficult to quantify about this experience. Making notes of your surroundings and solving puzzles that way by literally drawing lines in a book to connect dots that you've noted. I swear this game is fun, I promise. Just look at these pages from my own notebook. Actually, don't look at those, because the real fun of it all, the real satisfaction, is figuring that stuff out for yourself. Tunic is a game best played as blind as possible, knowing as little about it as possible. That is why I've talked so little about what you actually do in the game and so much about the spirit of the game, because Tunic doesn't just respect player intuition, it expects it. Tunic will not handhold you. Maybe you just want a game where you can turn off your brain and just shoot stuff. Sure, then Tunic is not for you. But if you love games where you have to approach it like a big tangled knot, slowly pick away at it, find one end and unravel it bit by bit, then Tunic is absolutely the game for you. This game is a masterpiece, and it is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And maybe you're thinking, wasn't this video about games similar to Zelda? Trace its lineage back, and you can find in its DNA a familiar set of triangles and the spirit of a golden cartridge. Man, it's really hard to hype up a game where, like, the best part of the game is stuff I can't talk about. I apologize if this was vague and kind of nonsensical and eclectic. And hey, Tyler, thanks for having me on this video. It's been a pleasure, man. Cheers.
When my boy Tyler Townsend approached me and asked me for a game that was similar to Zelda, but not Zelda, I only had one answer: the Darksiders series. Darksiders 1 follows one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, War, a brute akin to Kratos in brutality and his extremely short temper. The TLDR of the story is that you were called to a world on the brink of an apocalypse. However, through plot, you find that you were not actually called, which is a little bit confusing, but it's hard to explain without spoiling the entire plot of the game. As punishment for failing to uphold your pact, you are stripped of your power, given a new task, and forced to carry a companion, much akin to Navi if they had a very, very violent streak and could just kill you whenever they wanted. Luckily, this doesn't have any gameplay implications, but it's very important to the lore. Imagine Navi, but instead of constantly yelling at you, she just kills you if you don't listen? Ocarina of Time would be way different if Navi was a psychopath like this guy. Anyway, Darksiders is also broken up into a dungeon format. That means you get an item or ability, then you use the new addition to your arsenal to finish the dungeon, and a lot of times defeat the boss as well. Some of the items even share similarities with items in Twilight Princess, a game that came out I think around the same time. Both the Legend of Zelda series and the Darksiders series have a heavy focus on puzzles, which often will require the use of multiple items to find a solution, and combat, though the combat differs quite a bit from the Zelda games being a hack and slash instead of, well, to be honest, I don't really know what the combat in Zelda is classified as. So if you find yourself with a hunger for the older, more dungeon-focused style Zelda games, or maybe just a more mature, dark gothic style Zelda game, give Darksiders a try. It's a fairly old game, so it's on sale pretty much all the time.
What's up guys, it's Edible Incredible, and my Zelda-like game is Oceanhorn. The first Oceanhorn was inspired by the Wind Waker with its vast sea, but the second game is what I'm going to be focusing on. The second game draws direct comparisons to Breath of the Wild, especially aesthetically, from the main character's blue tunic, to a stamina wheel, to heart containers, to some very visually appealing dungeons. Not to mention, this game has the retail. Well, no, it's not the retail. I mean, they probably will get copyrighted, but it's they got bird people in this shit. What the hell? Fairly early on in the game, you even get a classic Zelda item, none other than a grappling hook, which doesn't just act as a traveling device, but it also can be used to friggin' sneak strike enemies from a solid distance. Realizing this in-game, I was instantly hooked. So far, I've only completed 2 dungeons, and specifically the second dungeon was super cool. a massive tower in the quote-unquote Rito's forest. The overgrown walls and the red birds flying around was such a vibe. There's even a moment where you flip the character upside down and travel upwards in order to get to the boss's room, which of course reminded me of Stone Tower. And boss, spoiler alert, a massive firebird, which definitely reminds me and must have been also inspired by Argarok from Twilight Princess, and most definitely the Helm Rock King from the Wind Waker. Argarok especially with this moment where you grapple on top of his head to slay him. So since this is a free mobile game, the combat is naturally simple. But I'm so glad that they added an option to parry. The main character is accompanied by a robot and a girl companion. She can be a little annoying with her dialogue at times, but what I do love about this character is that she wields a boomerang. To give you the rundown, story-wise, Oceanhorn 2 is technically a prequel to the first game, taking place 1,000 years prior. Oceanhorn 1 is $3 on the Switch, Oceanhorn 2 was $14, but unfortunately that was during the winter sale. So in summary, Oceanhorn 2 scratches that 3D traditional Zelda itch that a lot of fans miss, while visually looking like a new age Zelda.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hey folks, Hyrule Gamer here, and let me tell you why, if you like Zelda games, you should try The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Okay, so who doesn't know of Skyrim? It's undoubtedly the biggest and most popular fantasy adventure video game out there. It breathes adventure, much like Zelda games, through its wide world full of dungeons, side quests, mythical creatures, magic, and so much more. Skyrim to me has always captured similar feelings I get when playing Zelda games, just portrayed differently in a more open, realistic and detailed system. Zelda games are a very specific type of fantasy adventure, and I love their weird and wacky stories and worlds. Skyrim, on the other hand, is like a standard fantasy adventure, and it covers all the basics of creating an amazing fantasy adventure. I feel that if you are a Zelda fan, older or newer, that you'd love trying Skyrim if you haven't already. You'll feel so many similar feelings to playing through Zelda games, whilst also feeling unique and completely different. The dungeons and caves are very different to Zelda games, but still capture those feelings of exploring the unknown. Fighting dragons and other mythical creatures brings on similar vibes to slashing down bokoblins and dodongos, but again, in its own unique way. And finding all of the quirky stuff throughout the world will undoubtedly catch the same feelings you get when discovering little secrets and mysteries in Zelda games. Not only that, but much like Zelda games, Skyrim has an incredible story with lots of twists and turns, deep lore and incredible moments, but with added depth as the story can be altered based on your decisions. You shape the story as you progress. The previous games in the Elder Scrolls series also contain a ton of fascinating lore and backstory, much like the Zelda series. I'm not going to sit here and say that Skyrim is just like Zelda games. It's not, but it's a game you should absolutely play if you haven't already, if you're a Zelda fan. It's one of my favourites outside of the Zelda series. It offers a new and unique experience which will remind you a lot of playing through a Zelda adventure, whilst being extremely different in its own brilliant way.
And there you have it. There's a few games that we think you might enjoy if you like The Legend of Zelda. And if you're watching this, then I'm going to assume you like Zelda. If there's a game that you think is like The Legend of Zelda that you think folks should check out, let us know in a comment down below. I'd be really interested to see what games you guys come up with, and if it's something I may have played already or something I should check out. Links to all the collaborators in this video will of course be in the description. Make sure you guys go sub to them if you aren't already, and check out their content. They're all excellent content creators, and yeah, really appreciate them for taking part in this video. Make sure you guys go show them some love. That, of course, will bring us to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you in the next one.